All right, happy birthday, everyone. Okay, we've got our speaker tonight from beautiful downtown Santa Maria, Pat G. Without further ado, Pat.
Hi, everybody. My name's my name's Patricia Garcia. And I'm an alcoholic. And I'm a very grateful alcoholic. And I never thought I could say that. In fact, I never even thought I was one of you. And you know, I just came back from Bakersfield Roundup one more time, another convention. And the theme of the convention was AA, the ongoing miracle. And I think out of all, I always can feel the power of Alcoholics Anonymous and a spiritual, I feel it in these rooms today. But when I get there with 1,200 people and can feel that power of being one, there wasn't anybody that I wasn't like, or that wasn't like me. And I think if there's one thing in being sober and in my sobriety today that I would say is the most important change, it would be that I can be in a group of people anywhere today and feel like I am one with a higher power, one with all of you. And it's a very good place to be. I looked at Merle. I was thinking of Merle on the way over here tonight because I knew his name was up there for her birthday. And I remember the first time I sat in here on a Sunday night meeting before I was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was sitting here being very critical, judgmental, because that's what I am. I am a critical, judgmental person. And I thought, look at those people getting up there and blowing out those silly candles. What in the world are they doing that's so wonderful? What's the big deal? And I was here because it was my mother's birthday. And I couldn't understand what was the big deal. You know, and today, and at Bakersfield, they have a little ritual they do. They do a countdown at the Sunday morning meeting where they have the people stand up and they start the countdown this morning at 38 years of sobriety. Everybody with 38 stand up, you know, and they worked all the way down to 24 hours. Roughly, as well as I think I kept track of the count, the people out of 12 or however many were in that room, the people that were standing up over 25 years was maybe a total of 20. You know, that made me think, my God, you know, see, if I can be here one day at a time, that's what I have to look to. See, I came in here always looking, you know, self-centered. The reason I said my name's Patricia Garcia is because my name has changed a lot. It started out Patsy Stott. And at 3 years old, Patsy was the apple of her father's eye, and she was the apple of her mother's eye. She was the only one in her universe. And her mother came home one day and said, "Isn't it wonderful? You're going to get a little brother or a little sister." And I thought, well, see, and what I have to say, I will tell you what I thought. No, because I didn't think it in those terms then. I must say one other thing about anything I say. Of course, I'm trying very hard to be as honest as I can about me. Anything I say about the way I was is a result of having done a thorough inventory and having to practice living today with the things that the inventory has revealed to me and the things that become revealed to me daily almost since then. And it came as quite a shock to me to realize that You see, I came in here saying when I finally surrendered and became willing and committed to working the steps and trying to find a way of living without drinking one day at a time, I told my sponsor when she said start with, when the time came to do an inventory, I said, I don't have any resentments. I honestly could not see where I had any resentments. And now I'm here telling you that I now am aware that at that point in time, the minute my mother came and said, there's going to be another one, either like you or maybe your little brother, that was it. I didn't want anybody interfering. I didn't want any people in that picture. And then she came along a couple of years later and said, there's going to be another one. And on that one, I ran away. I was 5. That's how I began my life dealing with conflict. And I ran away. We lived in Nebraska, and the one recollection I can think of, I was thinking about with my brother. And you see, as a sibling, and I think all these psychological things I learned, and I used to read about in my college education. And I was the older sister now, and you will look after little brother and little sister, and that's fine. And my brother used to run off naked. Now, I'm 6 and he's 1 or something, and he'd run out of the house naked. And I'd have to go get him. My mom would say, go get your little brother. I can feel how I felt that I'd go get that, saying to myself, that little brat, how can he do this to me? And take him by the hand and have to walk him through the apartment complex in which we lived, knowing that all the eyes were looking at me. Here you are with this naked little boy, and look what he's doing to you. And everybody knows it. Well, the thing about that's important for me today is that, see, that never changed. I went through my whole adult life, my adolescent life, with that feeling. And I began to do anything that I thought it would take for you not to see that I felt like that. See, I'm an alcoholic because alcohol took control of me. So I don't say these things in the context that I blame them for the fact that I'm here. I am grateful today for knowing. See, I'm grateful today for knowing what the hell was wrong with me. So anyway, we moved to California. Well, we didn't. We moved to Oregon when I was 6, 7. And my recollection of that was being in the car, coming over the mountain somewhere into Oregon, screaming, are we going to die? Are we going to die? Are we going to die? All we were doing was moving. I mean, why? We're going to die. And we were coming out here for my father, who was a drinking man, to make it good in California. And he was trained in Oregon. We came down. We lived in the San Fernando Valley then during World War II. Now I'm in grammar school, and both my parents are working in the war effort. And I resented the hell out of that. I don't care what you're doing. It's me that's bringing little brother and sister home. It's me that's doing the cooking. It's me that's having to keep this thing together. You people are robbing me from my childhood. I was so surprised on my inventory when that came out. I didn't even know it was there. The pain that I went through, which was saying, you didn't let me be little. I can't tell you what it feels like to be little. I looked at some photographs and I was so surprised. Again, I'm looking with different eyes. And I look at this girl that everybody around would say, Patsy's so dependable and she's so reliable and we can always entrust the children and you're doing a wonderful job. Be sure you get home from school on time so that you can have dinner ready. And I lived through that thinking that it was perfectly all right I mean, I didn't rebel. I stuffed. And the times that the stuffing would come out would be on my little brother and sister. If they didn't toe the line just right, I knew I was responsible. And it was going to have to be, as you know, my being okay was dependent on how they behaved. And that's the way it went. We lived in a trailer house. I heard one person not long ago mention her dilemma over living in a trailer house, and I thought, God, thank God, I finally have heard another one in the story department, you know. 16 foot. It isn't even a respectable camper trailer today. And here I am going to junior high school, adolescent, my father and mother are working, their weekends out they drank, they came home into the trailer house, me and my brother and sister slept at the other end. The other end's about from here to Bob Cutler. And I'd listen. I'd hear the quiet weeping, the quiet whispering. I couldn't tell you what they were saying. All I can tell you is I just drew in. And again, I accepted it, and, you know, and I'm also a very ungrateful person. During those years, I was given, my parents gave us what they thought were opportunities. My sister and I, you know, we were taking dancing lessons. My mother would sit up at a portable sewing machine in that dinky little trailer and sew fancy ballet dresses, tulle and all that stuff, after working all week. I never once felt grateful. I never once thought, see, I never remembered the good experiences. I only stuffed and held on to my perceptions of the negative. My father was not a violent drinker at that time in terms of how he got later. I can't, it was just, but it wasn't right. There was something wrong in our house. The trailer house, which is part of it. Now I'm in high school, and my way of now not getting close again and never letting out the real feelings was to be a joiner. And I became a group person. I joined this, I joined that, became very active, and did pretty well. By then we moved into a house. I always had been told you will go to college, so I went to college. My first real depression occurred in my second year of college, and I know this today. I didn't know that's what it was then, and nobody in my family identified it as such. And I went to college, and I worked and went to school. And for me, college was a big fat drag. The truth is, it was work, work, work. That's how I perceived it. I didn't have fun. And by then, still, I wasn't drinking. And I came home after the second year in junior college. I still lived at home the first year. Second year, I moved away. And I came home and sat. Now, I had always worked. I always had a summer job. I always worked after school. I came home and I sat. My father went crazy. What are you going to do, just sit here all summer? I said, yes. You can't just sit here all summer. I said, I'm sitting. And, you know, no matter what, total apathy. I don't remember thinking anything exciting like I wanted to die or I wanted to quit or nothing. Just wasn't going to move. That's how I deal with stress. I think it has something to do maybe now with burnout. I don't know. Got through that and went continued on to school. Now I'm introduced. Now in my home, drinking always was part of our life. My parents went out and drank. They had liquor in the home and they drank. Socially, if you call, people get together and play cards, which they did a lot. Everybody drank. By now, my younger brother is coming along in high school, and he's drinking, and I'm helping him sneak in. I'm helping him in through the window so that we can wait until explain to Daddy tomorrow when he's in a better mood. I'll pave the way for you. You don't want to let him catch you tonight, because we want to wait and catch him when he's in a good place. And I became a go-between. I became the family pacifier between my sister and him, between my mother and him, between everybody and him, you know. And I took this totally as being my role in life. I was obsessed with not drinking myself. And I know that one today. My father would say, if you guys want to start drinking and partying, I can't do anything about you when you're not here, but if you want to do it here at home, very liberated thinking, wonderful. And so that's what my brother and his friends did. They'd party like heck at home. I'll never forget, my brother-in-law still tells the story today. He is still drinking and using. And he is the first person that introduced me to bar drinking. He is still drinking and using today. And he tells the story. He told it to my husband. He said, he can't believe why I'm so different. And he was giving Joe all the credit. That's okay. But he was saying to him, and he says, Pat, you know how it is, families get together and they start reminiscing, and in our family, we'd always get together and everybody's drinking and they start reminiscing, and then somebody ends up crying, somebody else ends up in a fight, you know, and that's the way it always was. Well, we don't drink now, and so it doesn't go that way. And he is drinking, though. And he says, you know, I can't ever forget what a shrew Pat was. So we'd be having a real swinging party at our home with my brother, and I'd come home, and I can remember this, I'd come home and call the police and kick them out. And you know why? Because they're embarrassing me with the neighbors. They're throwing bottles over in the yard. They're making all this noise, and I'm responsible. And besides that, you're a total embarrassment to me. You have to cut this out. And I would not gently, insane, screaming, you know. You have to stop this. Totally obsessed. I don't remember my first drink. I'm sure I drank beer at home because it was always there. I probably had a beer. I don't remember it. I remember my first bar drink, and it was when I was in college. And it was my present brother-in-law who I was dating. He wasn't my brother-in-law then. And he was certainly not the type of person that a girl like me would have anything to do with. He was the guy that was always kicked out of places. He'd come back from Korea, he's a loud mouth. But I went out with him. And anyway, we went to a bar. And he said, how would you like a drink? Great. What would you like? This one I remember, because I thought I'll say something that I've seen or think that's sophisticated. So I'll have a martini dry. They brought the martini. I'll never forget it. Most god-awful tasting thing I ever tasted. But, man, what it did to my toes. You know. And about a couple seconds later, a few minutes later, and about another one, sure. Not a thought. I never had one. Never. From the very first, never had one. I drank whatever you offered, as long as you offered it, whenever the occasion was there. And that's how I started. And it made me feel wonderful. It made him look gorgeous and sophisticated. It made me womanly, not this backward, self-conscious college person who really wasn't excited about being there in college. To tell you the truth, I always would put on that I'm excited. You know, my mother would say, Christmas, just take Christmas. Take any exam, take Christmas. Christmas is coming. Oh, you know, I always play acted. Isn't that wonderful? But inside I think, oh, it's going to be another one of those terrible disappointments. I never get what I want. They don't ever understand me. They don't know what's going on. Why don't you know what's going on in here? Christmas, birthdays, it was all like that. So I had that first drink, and from then on, it started. Now, I went ahead and went through college, and I did not drink only because, and I know today, a lot. I mean, we'd come home on weekends, the family parties, I drank. But I never drank as bad as they did. Never drank like them. Didn't drink like my mother. Didn't drink like my father. Didn't drink like my brother. I was the one that kept it together. I could handle it from the very beginning. Anyhow, went in, went through college, quit college to get married. I got married, and that man was the father of my 2 sons. And that's the good thing that came out of that marriage. It lasted 4.5 years. I quit college, and now the role was, you will be a perfect wife, perfect mother. And totally into myself. I know today why that man left me. He didn't know it, and I didn't know it. I was so centered on my perception of what should be going on in our life that I never once knew that he was hurting. I never saw it coming when he said, I'm moving out tomorrow forever. And on that little conflict, I functioned for 3 months without any recollection yet to this day of what took place one day to the next. And I was not drinking. I wasn't drinking. I couldn't get to a store, couldn't get booze, the whole 9 yards. But somehow I took care of the babies. At this point in time, my father had just been released from Camarillo. We had committed him previously, the previous year, for his alcoholism. And so he and my mother were in a state of trying to get back on their own feet. And I resented the hell out of the fact that they were sicker and they weren't a bit of help to me in my dilemma. Totally into me. Totally. At the end of that 3 months, I woke up and I premeditatedly, cold sober, went out and tried to kill that man with a rock. I really think things through well. So, anyway, my drinking became full-blown now as a divorced woman, and I came to Santa Maria to take a job. I'm a single parent raising 2 children. Now I'm in my career phase. And the whole responsibility of survival of those 2 little babies and me is on me. And therefore now I am adult, and I am adult enough to start going to the bars. And that's what I did for my R&R and my relaxation and everything. And I started going to bars with other girlfriends and drinking. I used to say I went there because I liked to dance. I know today I went there because of the drinking experience, and I know today that I was scared probably somehow to do it alone. Anyway, in the whole bar scene and that went on, I remarried. I married a man who was a practicing drinker. I was told not to marry him. I did anyway. We had 5 good years out of 10. My drinking and his drinking progressed to the point where the last 5 years we were in the same house hating each other. He ended up dying in his sleep. The heartburst. So anyway, my next little venture was to change everything again. Now I am a widow, so I will be a widow. And I played that one to the hilt. And then I met a man, again, who is a drinker. Where else do I meet him but in bars? And I met him in a bar. This time, I wasn't going to get married. I'm going to do it the adult way. and we won't marry, and we didn't, and I told everybody here we did. My intention was to do that. Now my drinking is to the point that I'm drinking daily, and I drank daily for over 10 years solid. I drank lunchtime. My job was the kind for a long time where I could have business lunches. I drank daily. Would go back, do my job. I know today I lost that job because of what the book talks about. I started to have a personality change. My Jekyll and Hyde started coming out at work, and they forced me to resign, asked me to resign. And the reason was because, Pat, the people around you are scared to death of you. That's blunt. See, that isn't the way I ever wanted to be inside. That's not the way I want to be today, you know. And I handled that little conflict by running off to the desert to my mother, who was living over there by herself, drinking herself to death. And I went over there and hid out for 2 weeks and came back. You know, today, all I can say is all those things I am so grateful for. They're signposts. They're signposts for me. I started coming to alcohol. Now, drinking always made me think tomorrow was going to be different. This time it's going to be different. This man is going to be different. This situation is going to be different. Always. And then, while I was in England with this man, I began to experience total incomprehensible demoralization. I experienced it on an ongoing basis for a horrible 18 months. I wasn't drinking as much, but I had to drink every day. And I knew I had to, and I knew I couldn't stop. And that's what was killing me. I couldn't stop. I'd say today I'm not going to, and every day I'd say, why did you? And tomorrow I'm not going to. And I was maintaining. Now, mind you, I consider I was intoxicated as far as my body is concerned. It was never free of alcohol, except for a 3-month period, if it can be free in 3 months of not drinking, and that's when I got my DUI in 1977. And I was coming here to Al-Anon, and God bless the Al-Anons. I was now active in Al-Anon because of my mother having come into this program. And anyway, and I got a DUI, and I went 3 months without drinking, and I sat at the airport to leave, to go to England, and my girlfriend came out and said, let's have a drink. And I said, why not? And I started the first drink without a thought. And when I came back here and was active and in the book study program and discovered the Fred's story in the big book is exactly what happened to me sitting at that airport as I went to England, and then what followed. So anyway, I came back from England, not again of my own volition, because of a crisis. I was kicked out, and here's a ticket, and thank God, because it got me back here again one more time. I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. I still came to the meetings back as an Al-Anon, and I'm controlling. I'm doing what I call controlling. I won't drink today. Maybe I'll just allow myself a beer for lunch. And I did that for about 4 months. Horrible. I know today I was consumed with getting to the place where I could have the one beer. So I came into you here. I had been exposed in Al-Anon, and I came here still in denial that I'm an alcoholic. And I'm sorry that there's some people that aren't here that were here. I was looking around the room, I'm thinking to myself, everybody in here in one way or another that was here before I came has been an example for me. It's been a very important example for me. Anyway, I came in to meetings. I was coming to the Thursday noon meeting. I was going to the book study meeting, and I had read the book again, and you've heard me say this before, for some reason beyond my comprehension. I was sitting at home reading the book and totally knew I am an alcoholic. My life is totally unmanageable. My insanity is that people over and over and over and over, never changing. All my efforts, just went, power greater than myself can restore me to sanity. Of course it can. Alcoholics Anonymous works. It worked for my mother. It's worked for my brother. It's worked for all those people sitting in those rooms. Period. And I came to the meeting on Thursday and told you, I surrendered to my innermost self that I am an alcoholic. And I came here and told you that I am an alcoholic. And I knew for me what that meant. And thank God I had heard something else. See, I come to these meetings and I kept hearing, if you don't take the first drink, you won't get drunk. Terrific. But I heard something else. I heard people talking about living sober, living without drinking. That there are some deeper underlying causes and conditions. I was relieved. I was so relieved and still am today to know that all those years of trying to make it right, there is a reason. I'm an alcoholic. Thank God got me here. Thank God, you see, I know, because I have a solution. So I was committed, and I'm at step 4. And to me, doesn't matter how long or when I did it or what. It's important for me to remember that I had guidance. I came here with a closed mind, even through critical. Oh, I was committed, and I'm at step 4. And to me, doesn't matter how long or when I did it or what. It's important for me to remember that I had guidance. I came here with a closed mind, even through critical eyes. I am an example of the power of Alcoholics Anonymous and God as I understand Him coming through you people that beat down my denial. My surrender had come as a result of being here. It didn't come the 18 months of crawling on my knees in England. Okay. It came for me from being in here. So anyway, I went through, my sponsor said we will do it this way, and she took me through it. And after being prodded and pushed, I completed my inventory, and the time came to share it with another human being. And one more time, I tried to rationalize my way out of that one. Gee, I saw that little place in the book where it says, well, if you really want to take it with somebody else, or, it's okay. And then I heard a speaker at Solvang who was talking about, his sponsor had told him after years or something, he had X number of years in the program and was telling his sponsor, and he was in a bad place. His sponsor said, well, when are you going to do your 5th step with me? And he said, well, I did it with a priest or somebody else. Sponsor says, if you don't get totally honest with one person in Alcoholics Anonymous, yourself at least one person, you will never be rid of those secrets. And so, that's what I have to do. That's what I have to do. My recovery has begun after that, as I understand it today. It is an ongoing process. 5 and 6, for me, my character defects, I know today that I am ungrateful. I am a critical person. I am a judgmental person. The whys, that I know whys, that doesn't matter now for me today. What matters is what I do about them. What matters is what am I going to do today to try to be a little kinder, a little more thoughtful, a little more out of me. Humbly asking to remove my shortcomings. I have to remember, you see, I thought I could do it. Once I felt that release and freedom, I thought I could do it. I'll work on patience. Funny thing happens to me. Every time I pray to work on patience, I end up being, it seems, tested to the nth degree. whatever. So, I have to do it one day at a time. The principles, put them in front of me. I'm so grateful, too, for an example. I had examples that helped me, that I could look at, who were walking like they were talking. And I want to mention my husband, because I wasn't going to. Oh, my problem, one of them always has been relationships with the world, people. And Alcoholics Anonymous and service and work and being here chips away at my self-centeredness. It forces me, by being here, to be looking and caring about somebody else, something else. So I had people that were put in my life. My sponsor was put in my life at a time I needed her. I've heard it said around here, and I believe for me it's true. See, my higher power today, as I understand him and I call him God, gives me and does for me the things I can't do for myself. And he gives me the tools to do those things that I am supposed to do for myself. And I had good examples. And I want to thank my husband for being an example of working a program. Because when we met, we were met in here as friends, and that was it. And he was going through a process, his sobriety, his steps, and I was just hearing. I realized today that seeing those people in front of me, him, somebody else who was sharing, that they had done such as, I remember Al. I can look around here now and think Dave. I can think of Terry. I remember hearing Terry in Orchid many, before and right after I came into the program. People who I can remember today who were sharing themselves, that gave me a little bit of courage and hope, little bits at a time, to go ahead. Millie, still here, sitting here, being here. Thank God for them. Thank God for the people ahead of me who give me the courage to go on. See, I know today that my insanity is my self-centeredness, and that I cannot live that, my solution for that, my solution to conflict of any kind always has been drinking. Today, I must have another solution. And it's being here, and it's hearing you, and it's sharing one-to-one. My list, making amends. To me, it's an ongoing process. The continuing to take personal inventory. What does that mean to me? That means for me today, at the end of the day, I say, well, Patricia, who did you criticize today? Even quietly to yourself. When did you get involved today in being the judge? What did you do today to make it better, to make the situation better? And I have to ask God either to forgive me, I have to make an amend if it's necessary. And my prayer meditation, there's a time I meditate. My conscious contact today is a constant thing. My partner is something I talk to. It's a feeling I have, who I have learned to come to know and to trust. See, only by staying here. I didn't make myself. You and things put in front of me kept me here. You kept me here when I was being an Al-Anon and resenting you because you wouldn't let me share in your meetings. You let me stay here when I'm going to tell a steering committee in the whole world how it's supposed to be done. Thank God. See, only in here will I learn how to get along with people, how to fit into. I always was trying to make my brother, my sister, my family, my school, the whole world fit me. And I know today I couldn't do that any different then. I didn't know any of this then. And that's the freedom. See, today I do know. Today I do have tools. Today I have you. Today I have a higher power. Today I don't drink. The first thing in the morning is, today I'm an alcoholic. I am an alcoholic. And when I doubt it, I go to the big book and I find the real alcoholic, who is the alcoholic of my type, who I have circled, who describes me. When my head wants to start in, and it does very quick, oh, maybe you're really a little bit different. You see, I always have that I am maybe a little bit different. And I am not. The last thing I want to share about spiritual awakening, or the experiencing of walking, feeling the kinship with life that the book talked about. See, I've heard people say, I was always looking for it. I wasn't. See, I didn't know what it was. I never knew what loving somebody more than me was. I never felt spiritually one. That today manifests in fear of people will slip away. It manifests itself for me in the promises. But being a person who continually tried to, make people fit me, and my husband shared a little bit about it, but I have to share it from my standpoint. We come from totally different backgrounds. We come from a totally different ethnic culture. All things that should be very important to me, because they always used to be. It never has been important in here. But we went to his parents' 50th wedding anniversary in New Mexico. I am the oddball there, quotes. I know that before I even get there. After all, they don't speak. I don't understand what they're saying. They don't speak, my language. And I'm a wife from California. My God, it seemed my old tapes would be, and they're going to be looking for this. And the tape would start, and I would go back to, there is one God, there's one life, there's one, whatever I have to do. We get there, and his family is a diseased family with alcoholism running rampant, just as mine was. What I can't ever articulate, but I can tell you that I felt it at the convention. I began to feel it here after the first 15 minutes. We were one. We were one. I felt totally loved. I was with people who are totally different, and I felt love. I felt one with. That's the only way. We participated in a church service, in a church not of my denomination, which is one that I have spent a lot of years making a lot of wonderful critical comments and judgments about. And even there, see, because you know what, I wasn't the same as I used to be. That's all. And that's a very precious gift. A very precious gift. And all I want to say to newcomers is what they all said when I was sitting here, and I thought that's a bunch of baloney. Just keep coming. Just keep coming back. Boulevard doesn't matter. Just keep coming back. If you keep coming and you belong here, Alcoholics Anonymous will get you. If you keep working the principles in your life, I had to make the choice, and I made that decision that I wanted to have what the book told me I could have. I wanted to live happy. If I couldn't be happy in my sobriety, if I couldn't feel some inner peace, then to hell with it. Okay? And so I'm greedy. I will do them I will, put myself on the block, because here is where I test. Here's where I get the strength to practice. And the gift is that feeling. See, I don't have to prove anything. I didn't have to explain anything. Everybody just knew. That's a miracle. And it's a wonderful peace. I never felt it in 50 years. And so I will keep coming back. I'll keep trying it one day at a time. And I keep having to remember, I'm an alcoholic. I have a disease. I have an obsession of the mind. It keeps wanting to tell me you're a little bit different. And I must keep being here to remember and remind myself, I'm like everybody here. Today I am becoming a person that's part of a little bit of Al, a little bit of this, a little bit of that one, a little bit of my husband, on and on. And that person that I was she's becoming less and less of a power. And she's somebody who I can look at and love today. And I can look at those people and feel love today, rather than, Jesus, why didn't they do it better? What in the hell was wrong with them? What a freedom. See, that's it for me. And I want to thank you all. It's a real privilege for you, for me. See? That's one of them. No, I really mean it's a real privilege for me to be able to be here, and I appreciate you letting me be up here. Thank you.
Phil's reflections on acceptance appeared originally in the March 1962 issue. What is acceptance? One way to get at the meaning of the principle of acceptance is to meditate upon it in the context of AA's much-used prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Essentially, this is to ask for the resources of grace by which we may make spiritual progress under all conditions. Greatly emphasized in this wonderful prayer is a need for the kind of wisdom that discriminates between the possible and the impossible. We shall also see that life's formidable array of pains and problems will require many different degrees of acceptance as we try to apply this valued principle. Sometimes we have to find the right kind of acceptance for each day. Sometimes we need to develop acceptance for what may come to pass tomorrow. And yet again, we shall have to accept a condition that may never change. Then, too, there frequently has to be a right and realistic acceptance of grievous flaws within ourselves and serious faults within those about us, defects that may not be fully remedied for years, if ever. All of us will encounter failures, some retrievable and some not. We shall often meet with defeat, sometimes by accident, sometimes self-inflicted, and at still other times dealt to us by the injustice and violence of other people. Most of us will meet up with some degree of worldly success, and here the problem of the right kind of acceptance will be really difficult. Then there will be illness and death. How indeed shall we be able to accept all these? It is always worthwhile to consider how grossly that good word acceptance can be misused. It can be warped to justify nearly every brand of weakness, nonsense, and folly. For instance, we can accept failure as a chronic condition forever without profit or remedy. We can accept worldly success pridefully as something wholly of our own making. We can also accept illness and death as certain evidence of a hostile and godless universe. With these twistings of acceptance, we AAs have had vast experience. Hence, we constantly try to remind ourselves that these perversions of acceptance are just gimmicks for excuse-making, a losing game at which we are, or at least have been, the world's champions. This is why we treasure our Serenity Prayer so much. It brings a new light to us that can dissipate our old-time and nearly fatal habit of fooling ourselves. In the radiance of this prayer, we see that defeat, rightly accepted, need be no disaster. We now know that we do not have to run away, nor ought we again try to overcome adversity by still another bulldozing power drive that can only push up obstacles before us faster than they can be taken down. On entering AA, we become the beneficiaries of a very different experience. Our new way of staying sober is literally founded upon the proposition that of ourselves we are nothing. The Father doeth the works. In steps 1 and 2 of our recovery program, these ideas are specifically spelled out. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable, and came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. We couldn't lick alcohol with our own remaining resources, and so we accepted the further fact that dependence upon a higher power, if only our AA group, could do this hitherto impossible job. The moment we were able to fully accept these facts, our release from the alcohol compulsion had begun. For most of us, this pair of acceptances had required a lot of exertion to achieve. Our whole treasured philosophy of self-sufficiency had to be cast aside. This had not been done with old-fashioned willpower. It was instead a matter of developing the willingness to accept these new facts of living. We neither ran nor fought, but accept we did, and then we were free. There had been no irretrievable disaster. This kind of acceptance and faith is capable of producing 100% sobriety. In fact, it usually does, and it must, else we could have no life at all. But the moment we carry these attitudes into our emotional problems, we find that only relative results are possible. Nobody can, for example, become completely free from fear, anger, and pride. Hence, in this life, we shall attain nothing like perfect humility and love. So we shall have to settle, respecting most of our problems, for a very gradual progress, punctuated sometimes by heavy setbacks. Our old-time attitudes of all or nothing will have to be abandoned. Therefore, our very first problem is to accept our present circumstances as they are, ourselves as we are, and the people about us as they are. This is to adopt a realistic humility, without which no genuine advance can even begin. Again and again, we shall need to return to that unflattering point of departure. This is an exercise in acceptance that we can profitably practice every day of our lives, provided we strenuously avoid turning these realistic surveys of the facts of life into unrealistic alibis for apathy or defeatism. They can be the sure foundation upon which increased emotional health and therefore spiritual progress can be built. At least this seems to be my own experience. Another exercise that I practice is to try for a full inventory of my blessings, and then for a right acceptance of the many gifts that are mine, both temporal and spiritual. Here I try to achieve a state of joyful gratitude. When such a brand of gratitude is repeatedly affirmed and pondered, it can finally displace the natural tendency to congratulate myself on whatever progress I may have been enabled to make in some areas of living. I try hard to hold fast to the truth that a full and thankful heart cannot entertain great conceits. When we are brimming with gratitude, our heartbeats must surely result in outgoing love, the finest emotion that we can ever know. In times of very rough going, the grateful acceptance of my blessings, oft repeated, can also bring me some of the serenity of which our AA prayer speaks. Whenever I fall under acute pressures, I lengthen my daily walks and slowly repeat our serenity prayer in rhythm to my steps and breathing. If I feel that my pain has in part been occasioned by others, I try to repeat, God grant me the serenity to love their best and never fear their worst. This benign healing process of repetition, sometimes necessary to persist with for days, has seldom failed to restore me to at least a workable emotional balance and perspective. Another helpful step is to steadfastly affirm the understanding that pain can bring. Indeed, pain is one of our greatest teachers. Though I still find it difficult to accept today's pain and anxiety with any great degree of serenity, as those more advanced in the spiritual life seem able to do, I can, if I try hard, give thanks for present pain nevertheless. I find the willingness to do this by contemplating the lessons learned from past suffering, lessons which have led to the blessings I now enjoy. I can remember, if I insist, how the agonies of alcoholism, the pain of rebellion and thwarted pride, have often led me to God's grace, and so to a new freedom. So, as I walk along, I repeat still other phrases such as these. Pain is the touchstone of progress. Fear no evil. This too will pass. This experience can be turned to benefit. These fragments of prayer bring far more than mere comfort. They keep me on the track of right acceptance. They break up my compulsive themes of guilt, oppression, rebellion, and pride. And sometimes they endow me with the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. To those who have never given these potent exercises in acceptance a real workout, I recommend them highly the next time the heat is on, or for that matter, at any time.
The anonymity traditions may be the most vital and the most misunderstood of AA's principles. In a May 1971 article, C.H. of Fairfield, Connecticut, clarified the concept of principles before personalities, as well as the policy of attraction rather than promotion. From the quiet successes. One of the strongest sources of attraction to our fellowship is gradually drying up, and so the responsibility for carrying the message rests increasingly upon groups and individual members. That source is publicity. AA is successful, and because it is successful, it no longer is news. From the perspective of history, AA is one of the great human stories of all time. But from the perspective of yesterday and today, that magazines and newspapers must deal with, it simply is not news that 500,000, in 1983, the number is more than 1 million, sober people stayed sober for another day. Word of mouth and example must take up the slack in carrying the message. The danger is that if too literal or too selfish an interpretation is placed on anonymity, the message will not be carried at all. The public will gain its impression of AA from the noisy failures rather than the quiet successes. Worse, the potential member might easily be led to believe that AA members are mostly bottle fighters, weak of will and loud of mouth. He would have no way of knowing of the existence of quiet, successful, happy AA members. He would see little in the available evidence to attract him. The concept of anonymity has uses and abuses. The uses. 1. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of the fellowship. It ensures the supremacy of principles over personalities. It encourages the doing of alms in private. And it guards against the identification of the fellowship with the views of any individual. It promotes group action. 2. For the individual, it teaches him not to seek cheap pity from his fellows or phony admiration from his neighbors. Dormant alcoholism is not a cross to be borne publicly. 3. For the newcomer, anonymity offers a safe haven. Racked with fear, shame, and guilt, the newcomer can be assured that his awful secret is safe with us. He soon begins to learn that it is not so awful. 4. Anonymity greases the gears of the internal machinery. I am much more likely to share my experience, strength, and hope if I am reasonably sure that the telling of my story will be left to me. These are the great, compelling reasons for anonymity. They seem so powerful that leaning over backward in maintaining our anonymity seems justified. But when this occurs, AA can become a secret society. My membership in it can become a dark fact to be hidden in shame and embarrassment. When this happens, I am in danger. And so is the group. For, in the words of the fifth tradition, each group has but one primary purpose: to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. The group has no anonymity at all. In fact, its primary purpose is to make itself known. This purpose is not served by these abuses of anonymity. 1. Failure to extend the helping hand. So zealous is the desire to protect anonymity that it overcomes the need to extend help to those who ask for it. 2. Failure to respond to opportunity. This is a little subtler, but often a sufferer can be approached with a gentle message of hope from one who is willing to admit, without being asked, that he knows a way out of the woods. 3. Failure to correct misapprehensions. Well-meaning civilians have often voiced gravely distorted notions of the AA program. If uncorrected, these distortions could seriously damage our chances of attracting people who desperately need AA. The group has even greater opportunity to carry the message without waiting for individuals to express the need for that message. Since its primary purpose is just that, many groups profit by planning and running public meetings and by sending speakers to sessions with medical, legal, service, and industrial organizations. Each of these opportunities for group action is a sure cure for inertia. But what counts most, finally, is my relationship to my higher power, my group, and myself. I have been granted sobriety, and I believe I am intended to make the most of it. If I fail to do my best to help a sufferer, I cannot forget that failure, even though I think I have. Forgetting is the cellar of the mind, dim and dark, but nevertheless there. So I must remember that I am engaged in an endless task which will be a companion to me throughout my days, and I neglect it at my peril. The admonition to help speaks with a tongue of iron. It calls me to an adventure bordering on the night, and I cannot ignore it. Anonymity is mine, but my sobriety belongs to the sufferer, and I must give it to him. My reward is perhaps greater than any other, for I am privileged to talk to him and to sit and watch his inner sunrise.
With sobriety, AAs learn to laugh again, often at themselves. R.D. of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania added a light touch to the July 1969 grapevine with this humorous article. Those stupid slogans. Bertram was an English teacher. Very intelligent, horn-rim type. He drank martinis only. He downed 15 of them one night and smashed up his car. The next night, under prodding from his wife, he took a cab to the clubhouse for AAs, where I spend my spare time. When I first laid eyes on him, he was decidedly drunk. "I am decidedly drunk," he announced with some pride. "Do you want to stop drinking?" someone asked. "I suppose so." For the next 3 days, Bertram spent all his waking hours at the clubhouse. On the 4th day, his mind began to clear. His eyes roamed the walls, and suddenly he groaned. "What tripe! Look at those slogans. I can't stand it." "Well, don't knock them till you've tried them," I said. Bertram heartily replied, "I've got an excellent mind, my friend. I want to use it. I cannot abide thinking in cliches. One day at a time. Easy does it. Good Lord. I'll go insane if I have to live with this rubbish. Each day thereafter, Bertram's complaints increased. His tone veered to mockery. Did you hear what the AA member shouted to the mountain climber? Let go and let God. His laughter filled the clubhouse. Some of the boys began to squirm. Bertram continued. I wish I published calendars so I could say 1 day at a time and really mean it. More sarcastic glee. Bertram was killing himself. 2 days later, he cornered me. By then, I was about the only one in the clubhouse who would talk with him. With a superior smirk, he asked me, I mean, really, in these troubled times, how can anyone say, live and let live? Have you visited our local ghetto lately? I said, I don't think you quite get the AA picture. Bertram was undeterred. Johnny keeps saying, it's hard by the yard, but it's a cinch by the inch. And he's a grown man. What drivel? I decided to give him some rope. I got another cup of coffee, sat down, and said, Okay, Bertram, baby, unload on me, let it all out. You're damn right I will, he came back. I'm sick of slogans. I've been in AA for 10 whole days, and all I've heard is trash like God, guts, and group, and stinking thinking will get you drinking. I'd be laughed out of my living room if I told my friends such things. Your friends may not be alcoholics, I reminded him. But they're intelligent, and they're adults. How, in the complex world of 1969, can you tell anyone to keep it simple? And I refuse to believe that it's the first drink that gets you drunk, or 1 drink is too many and 1,000 aren't enough. Such reasoning makes me sick. What's more, AA members contradict themselves with their slogans. Yeah? How so? Well, the other night I heard a speaker say, AA is a spiritual program, but a minute later he said, don't get too tired or too hungry. Now, what have fatigue and hunger got to do with the spirit? You'd be surprised, I told him. By now, Bertram was rolling. AA would make the average psychiatrist foam at the mouth. You can't afford a resentment, for instance. Who can't? I can, for one. And that saying about, it's a simple program for complicated people. Look around the room. Do these clods look complicated to you? All they do is spout catchwords. I said, you should try talking to some of them. Bertram shot back. I couldn't stand it. All they'd come up with are things like, this is an honest program, there but for the grace of God, and honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Oh, yes, I almost forgot about, you can't keep it unless you give it away, and take what you like, leave what you don't like. I said, well, you must have been making a mental list of all our slogans just so you could criticize them. Bertram griped, I wouldn't mind AA having 1 or 2 cliches, but why do you have to use so many of them? I've been trained in the English language, and I rebel when I hear a noble tongue like ours reduced to a bunch of hackneyed phrases. These slogans have helped a lot of people stay sober, Bert. Well, they're not helping me. With that, Bertram stormed out of the clubhouse. I didn't see him again for a while, but the reports started coming in. Bertram had taken a martini one night, 4 the next night. During the past weekend, he'd been jailed for slugging a cop who had stopped him for drunken driving. A couple of days later, I stopped in at the clubhouse. There, sitting by himself in a corner, was Bertram. He looked haggard and scared. I spoke to him, but he barely answered. He wanted to be left alone. For the next week, he sat on the fringes of the clubhouse crowd and didn't say a word. This time he seemed to be listening, and he wasn't smirking anymore. Not at all. The clincher came soon afterward. One night, when a brand new man was brought to the clubhouse, we fed the newcomer coffee, gave him encouragement, and listened to his tale of woe. By midnight, he was feeling better, and a couple of members offered to drive him home. The new man was almost to the door when out of nowhere came Bertram. On his face was a sincere smile. He stuck out his hand to the new fellow, gave him a pat on the back, and just as if he had minted the words only 10 seconds before, said, "Keep bringing the body around." My jaw dropped, and I almost blurted out something, but I decided not to. Bertram looked too happy, serene even. What the heck, I figured. Live and let live.
Here's a tribute to AA's elder statesmen and women. It's a shortie from the February 1950 issue by a member from Waukesha, Wisconsin. Are you unappreciated? If you are an especially active and hard-working member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and you are going along day after day, unhonored, unrecognized, and unsung, may I congratulate you? No higher mark of appreciation could be paid you than to be taken for granted. That means you are accounted an inner member of the inner circle, your service naturally expected. No problem about you suspected which might require solicitude or special attention. Of course, such a regard is not very thrilling. The person doesn't live who doesn't like to be appreciated. But this is the way it usually is in Alcoholics Anonymous. The most genuine, the sincerest mark of appreciation is to be taken for granted. Beware of lavish attention, constant expressions of your value, and an overflow of thank yous. If these are your lot, it may be that you are an exception to the above rule and are just lucky. But it is more probable either that people are not quite sure about your staying in line, or that your reputation for sensitiveness is well known, and its demand simply being met. There are few places where just being ignored is such an honest tribute as in Alcoholics Anonymous.
And thus we grow, and so can you. Though you be but one man with this book in your hand, we believe and hope it contains all you will need to begin. We know what you're thinking. You're saying to yourself, I'm jittery and alone. I couldn't do that, but you can. You forget that you've just not tapped a source of power much greater than yourself. And to duplicate with such backing what we have accomplished is only a matter of willingness, patience, and labor. Still, you may say, but I will not have the benefit of contact with you who write this book. We cannot be sure. God will determine that. So you must remember that your real reliance is always upon Him. He will show you how to create the fellowship you crave. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you tread the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. I'd like to thank Ann for inviting me down to share with you, and to thank each of you for being here to share with me. During the Vietnamese War, the students at Berkeley had a slogan: suppose they gave a war and no one came. I like to think about Alcoholics Anonymous like that. Suppose we had this meeting and no one came. All those people that said they were due tonight, they would come here and they would look around and they would say, this thing don't work. Ain't nobody here. And go back and drink themselves to death, never having enjoyed the information that you and I now enjoy, to know that they never have to take another drink in their life if they don't want to, one day at a time. And in closing, I would like to leave with you a little prayer that I stole from a lady. And if I heard her use it tonight, I'd say, hey, she's using my prayer. And she simply said, thank you, God, for all you have given me. Thank you, God, for all you've taken away. But thank you, God, for what you left me. Keep coming back.